U.S. envoy Jared Kushner is meeting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to advance the Gaza peace plan. Mr. Kushner has just had a rare meeting with Hamas leaders in Egypt over the group's disarmament. Mr. Netanyahu has rejected the latest peace roadmap, insisting on full Hamas disarmament before Israel withdrawal from Gaza. Now, in Egypt, Mr. Kushner pressed Hamas to take concrete and verifiable steps towards giving up its weapons. Hamas has expressed conditional support for the roadmap, but wants the US and others to exert more pressure on Israel to commit to the Gaza plan. It has repeatedly demanded an end to Israeli attacks. 8 countries, including Egypt and Saudi Arabia, have condemned Israel's rejection of the permanent ceasefire plan. They accuse Israel of obstructing efforts to advance the peace process. They also warned that moves to block Palestinian statehood would undermine prospects for long-term peace and stability in the region. And for more, Blake Sifton is covering developments for CNA from Tel Aviv. Blake, is the US or any other mediator any closer to bridging that gap between Israel and Hamas on this peace plan?
Good evening, Angela. Well, in that rare meeting with Jared Kushner in Egypt, newly elected Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya is understood to have said that Hamas is committed to President Trump's Gaza disarmament plan, but they would only begin disarming when Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu publicly commits to this plan and to the phased withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. But of course, Prime Minister Netanyahu has publicly rejected this plan and said that Israel will not withdraw at all until Hamas has been completely disarmed. That is contrary to the plan, and that is a non-starter for Hamas. According to the plan, Hamas was meant to surrender their weapons in phases. At first, their police would surrender their guns to the new technocratic government in Gaza. Then they would surrender their heavy weapons like rockets and mortars and rocket-propelled grenades. And then they would surrender their personal weapons. And at each stage, Israel would withdraw further and further from Gaza. So when it comes to these key issues of disarmament and withdrawal, the two sides are very far apart, and these remain major obstacles. But Jared Kushner is also expected to push Prime Minister Netanyahu to fulfill Israel's obligations under the October Gaza ceasefire plan, which include allowing at least 600 trucks of aid to enter Gaza per day and allowing the deployment of the International Stabilization Force that's meant to enter Gaza and assist with demilitarization.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu is also facing pressures at home. So how much room does he have politically to compromise on the Gaza plan, especially on Israeli withdrawal and the Palestinian statehood issue?
Well, the Trump administration is said to believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu's public rejection of this disarmament plan is essentially for show as elections approach in Israel at the end of October. Many of Netanyahu's far-right coalition partners are completely opposed to any withdrawal from Gaza. They actually want Gaza to be resettled. And many voters in Israel are very distrustful of the idea that Hamas would actually disarm. And many of Netanyahu's opponents in the upcoming election have accused him of allowing the United States to impose this disarmament plan on Israel. And when it comes to the issue of Palestinian statehood, there is virtually no support for that at this stage amongst major parties in Israel. But one area where the U.S. is hoping to make progress is on the strikes in Gaza. According to the plan, Israel was meant to halt their strikes in Gaza except in the face of immediate threats. And when the U.S. announced this plan, Israel actually increased their strikes in Gaza. And while they did pause them for a week, those strikes have picked back up. And there were a further 2 airstrikes in Gaza yesterday. So Jared Kushner, in his meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu, is expected to push for an end to those strikes and hope that that concession would be enough to convince Hamas to begin disarming.
Blake, thank you so much for that report. That was Blake Sifton, live for CNA in Tel Aviv.